my name is Emily and I support the Independent Garden Centre team with some of their marketing and creative services. And today we're going to be talking about SEO. Now I know SEO can feel like a daunting topic to some, but don't worry, we're not going to get super technical today, mainly because as a business owner, you don't need to know SEO on the same level as a web developer or an SEO specialist. However, I do think it can be beneficial to have a fundamental understanding of how it all works and what factors may be supporting or potentially detracting from SEO efforts. Also, at the very least, I hope that this will empower you if you're ever having a conversation with a web developer by hopefully giving you a clear understanding of what the heck they're talking about. So I'd say for most of us, when we think about SEO, we go, okay, so that's the stuff that I kind of need to sort out on my website in order to rank better on Google. And this is correct, but did you know that your website is really only one of 8 factors Google is using in order to determine how your business will rank in Google search? And that's what we're going to be talking about today, what those 8 factors are. Since I'm sure some of you are at different places in your journey and in your understanding of SEO, I am going to take a little bit of time now to explain it. But if you already feel comfortable in your understanding of what it is and you'd really just like to skip to the factors, you can go straight there by jumping here. So let's break this down. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Now the term SEO is actually really broad and comes into play with any search engine. So not just Google. Any other search engine provider such as Yahoo, Bing, AOL. It also comes into play with any individual search bar online, such as the ones you will see on Instagram, Facebook, or even on your own website. Essentially, anytime someone searches online, some form of SEO will be at play. And each of these places may have a slightly different way of determining how they run their searches. That is, that they have different algorithms in place, which is partly why any deep conversation about SEO can get really confusing really fast. For total transparency today, I will be talking specifically about the factors which affect your website's ranking on Google's search engine. This is because over 70% of people still use Google as their primary search engine, and also, let's face it, most other search providers are really just trying to copy the logic Google uses in its algorithm. SEO can also be broken into 2 camps, global SEO and local SEO. What I'll be going through today pertains to local SEO, because as businesses that have a physical location, this is going to be far more relevant to you than to turn your attention to broader global SEO. Factors certainly do cross over, but with local SEO, there are some things to consider that will help us rank better in local specific searches, near me searches, and for people who just happen to be searching whilst a certain proximity to your store. We can't be kings and queens of the ocean right away, but we can work towards being kings and queens of our own little pond. So how does SEO actually work? Now for simplicity, let's imagine Google only does one thing. We'll forget the marketplaces, the wearable tech, all of that. For today, they are just a search engine. And congratulations, you're the head of Google. Your customers are coming to use your search engine. As with any business that offers a service, we want them to have a good experience with us. Now, in the context of a search engine, a good experience means that when they type a query in that search bar, highly relevant searches are going to be returned. They're going to be so relevant, in fact, that I rarely need to look further than that first page or ever need to go to any other search engine provider for more results. Better yet, not only are the items listed highly relevant, but in the case of a business or retail type search, the business listings it returns should be of quality, reputable, and established businesses. I mean, think about it. If I searched through Google and everything it returned was A, completely irrelevant to what I had just searched, or B, the businesses it showed me were really kind of looked a bit sketchy and dodgy, chances are I'd start trying my chances with another search engine provider. So okay, great, but you're Google and you have a big problem. There is so much content out there. There are literally billions of possible results, possible businesses that you could show your customer for any given query. So when you send your little web crawlers out into the universe to sort through this content and work out what should go on that main page of results, how do you go about identifying which businesses tick those boxes and are relevant, reputable, and of good quality? Meet the algorithm. The algorithm is essentially a checklist of things these little web crawlers will be looking for as they go through the results to help them assess and then rank the content they find. You having good SEO is like you putting up a big sign that says, hey guys, I am right here and I tick all those boxes. I'm stripping this back a little bit, but I think you get the point. So then what is this algorithm looking for? What is on that checklist? This brings me to the 8 factors. On-page link signals, behavioral signals, off-page link signals, citations, Google My Business profile, reviews, social signals, and personalizations. Let's break these down. On-page link signals. Now this one is about your website. The bulk of it is actually a lot of really technical things in the back end of your website, which you do not need to focus on. That's your developer's job, and to an extent, the job of the web platform provider that you have picked. For example, Shopify. You're going to hear things like metadata, heading tags, XML maps. Don't worry too much about it. If you're using a platform like Shopify, they have made sure certain elements have already been worked into their coding and design that will support a decent chunk of your website overall on-page SEO from the get-go. But some of the main things for you to look at, however, are as follows. Adding great copy. So that is the text to describe your business, services, and/or products. Part of what those web crawlers are looking for are keywords that either exactly or broadly match with what the user has searched. So if they've searched garden center, it does not hurt that you've got the word garden center used throughout your website. That's not to say you need to go really crazy and spammy with this. It's just something to be conscious of when you are writing out your descriptions. Do you offer certain services? If yes, make sure you haven't just stuck them in an image somewhere and you've actually written them out in text a few times throughout your website. Speaking about images, the web crawlers can read text, but they struggle to read images. What they can see off the bat is the image file name. So if that just happens to be a bunch of random numbers.jpg, this means absolutely nothing to the web crawler. If you've gone to the bother of naming it something like Joe Smith Garden Center Roses.jpg, those words can help the web crawlers to match you to searches. Equally, you've probably heard of something called alt text before, which is invisible text that sits behind your images. If you add alt text to your images, this again gives the web crawlers more to read through and then match against possible searches. If you're using something like Shopify, you can add alt text in bulk to your images at the product upload time through their product upload spreadsheet templates. It's also good to keep in mind that with your images, you are using appropriate file types such as JPEG and/or PNG, and that you're not going too crazy with big file sizes because this will impact how long it takes for your site to load. Next up would be to have a mobile optimized site. Now, I think in 2022, this goes without saying, and again, most providers like Shopify will have ensured this for you anyway. But if for whatever reason you do not have a mobile optimized website, this is one of the ones that can have a significant impact on your SEO. And lastly, keep in mind that you should be keeping your navigation really streamlined and simple. The experience for the users on page should be really easy. They want to get somewhere, it shouldn't take them more than say 1 or 2 clicks to get there. These are really the main ones to have a think about, and outside of that, your web provider and/or web developer should be carrying the load of what to do with your on-page SEO. So for today, we're going to move on. Next up, behavioral signals. Another factor which supports your SEO is what's called behavioral signals. Now, you can't completely control these, but you can try to encourage and influence them. Behavioral signals refers to when a customer comes to your site, how do they typically behave or interact with it? Google will then look favorably or unfavorably to certain behaviors and interactions with the site. So for example, let's say visitors come to your site and they typically look at more than one page before they leave. A decent percent of your visitors make purchases. A decent percent of your visitors are returning visitors. Visitors on average tend to spend a reasonable amount of time on your site before they disappear. Things like this tend to be looked on favorably, whereas things like customers come to your site, do nothing, bounce, and then leave. Very few purchases are ever made. Pages take too long to load. The website is really clunky on mobile. Are examples of things that Google does not look at favorably. To do well in this factor, you're after a well-built, well-designed website that provides a user-friendly experience. And then ideally you are building up a decent conversion rate in your sales over time. Now, the backend of your website should provide at least a top-line level of analytics to check out these attributes. Alternatively, if you have Google Analytics connected to your website, you can go on a much deeper dive and see if there are any problems arising in how your customers might be moving through or interacting with your site. Next up, off-page link signals and citations. I'm going to put these two together because they very often go hand in hand. When Google tries to work out if you're a legitimate and established business, it makes the assumption your own website will not be the only place your business is mentioned across the internet. Because if you think about it, any real business would just so happen to, over the course of its existence, likely be mentioned in other places around the web, right? So it goes looking for what is called your NAP information. NAP information stands for your name, that is your business name, address, and phone number. Google wants to see how many times your NAP information exists online outside of your own website. For most of us, this is going to come in the form of probably online directories, such as yellowpages.com, maybe a local community directory. Perhaps you're listed as a stockist on all of your suppliers' websites. I believe you're all listed on the Independent Garden Center's website. Things like that. Now, it counts as a citation anytime your NAP information, so your business name, physical address, and phone number, appear on the internet, anywhere off your website. In contrast, an off-page link signal is simply anytime a link appears that links back to your website. So something like an online directory listing where you generally get to list out all your business details as well as a link back to your website is going to count as both a citation and an off-page link signal. If you had just your business information listed, your name, address, and phone number, it's just a citation. If in another scenario someone is writing about your business, say in their blog, and they perhaps do mention your business name, but they don't also include that phone number and physical address, they just include a link, then that is an off-page link signal. But bottom line, if there are any relevant online directories for you to be on, go get on them. This sort of thing really supports your SEO. Also too, if you're ever running a promotion or doing a collaboration with another business and they post something on their online accounts, make sure they're giving you a little link back to your website. However, there are two main things to keep in the back of your mind with these two factors as well. The first is where your NAP information is found does matter to Google. It ideally wants that information to be listed on other reputable websites. So a listing on Yellow Pages, that's great. A random listing on a rather suspicious looking website, not so great. A few years back, citations and off-page link signals were actually so powerful towards SEO that some companies paid a bunch of dodgy websites to just list them so they could rank better. Google's really onto this now. So just stick to some established online directories that make sense for you to be on and make sure your details are listed. The second thing to think about is consistency. For every listing of your NAP information on the internet, do your very best to have it written the same way every time. I mean, be quite pedantic. If you write Shop 1A, 18 York Drive in one place, don't write 18 York Drive, Shop 1A in another. Make sure it is just so super easy for the web crawlers to match that information for you. Next up is Google My Business Profile and reviews. So your Google My Business Profile is this. And if you don't have one and you have a physical store, please go get one immediately. This is one of the best forms of local SEO out there for you when it comes to those local specific searches. When someone is searching for garden center followed by your suburb, you want your Google My Business Profile to pop up. Because it pops up like this, right at the top, draws attention and has all your key information at their fingertips. Especially if you are not the only garden center in your suburb, or even when it comes to those slightly broader searches, we want your profile to show over any competitors. So tips for putting your best foot forward with this. Fill out the profile in absolute entirety. It gives you the option to put in a profile image, please put one in. Gives you the option to fill in your trading hours, please fill that section in. Make sure you complete the profile as much as possible. Do add images of your store. Ideally, come back and update those images every month or so. Update those trading hours should anything change in store. This is another place that your NAP information can be found. Make sure it's listed and how it's listed is consistent with any of those other online listings we spoke about. And then the last thing is reviews. Now this one is really key. The more reviews you have, the more 5 or 4-star reviews you have, the better you will rank over other businesses in your area. So if you are in a scenario where perhaps another garden center is outranking you, go have a look at their Google My Business Profile and see how many reviews they have and what their average score is. If, for example, they have 12 reviews and an average of 4, and you have 4 reviews and an average of 3 or even 4, guess what your homework is? you're going to set yourself a goal to get at least 15 reviews that are a majority of 4 or 5 stars. Now, reviews is not the only factor impacting how your profile ranks, but it is a really big one. Sometimes just doing this will tip the scales in your favor and get your Google My Business profile ranking over your nearest competitor. Now, having good reviews on your Google My Business profile will help your profile rank better, but reviews on their own also independently support the ranking of your website as well, which is why they count as their own factor. It shouldn't be surprising Google looks to reviews to base its rankings on, of course, remembering that Google is looking for ways to determine that a business is legitimate and of high quality. Reviews are a great way to do this. Now, your Google reviews carry a lot of weight, but they're also looking for reviews anywhere else across the internet that refer to your business, such as your Facebook reviews or possibly even ones on your own website. Social media signals. When Google's trying to determine if a business is legitimate, another place it looks to is for associated social media accounts. If you think about it, it would be relatively easy to fake a website, but how much effort would it be to fake a website and then a bunch of active social media accounts to go along with it? So this is something else Google looks at to legitimize and to also get an indication of if you are really actively trading. You've also probably noticed that when you search for your business name, if you have social media accounts, you'll get listed a few times. That is, you'll get listed as your website, your Instagram, and your Facebook, which no one is complaining about. Now, social media has its own world of SEO that we could talk about, but just focusing on what helps your website rank, the key thing here is really just activity. Keep those accounts active. If you used to post and then don't for several months, this may impact your ranking simply because now Google's not so sure if your business is trading at the same level as it was in the past. I don't mean if you've just kind of gone and saved those handles, you haven't posted a thing, it's a for later future problem that you haven't got to yet. I'm talking about if you used to post quite a bit and then you stop, because Google might view this as a little bit odd and rank other businesses that are more active on social media over you. Your social media accounts are also yet another place for you to have your NAP information listed, as well as a link back to your website, so they count towards citations and off-page link signals as well, which is really nice. But basically, if you have a few social media accounts and you're posting on them semi-regularly, you have ticked the main box in this space. Last up, personalizations. Right, so with this one, you actually have no control over this particular factor, but I think it's good to understand how it is impacting things when it comes to how you rank in Google search. I don't think it will surprise you to know that Google is constantly gathering information on us. It's learning from us, and it's often trying to tailor our experience to align with our preferences. Because of this, if I'm on my laptop at home and Evan's on his laptop in the office and we search the exact same thing, the results that we get are going to be a little bit different and may rank quite differently. This is because, along with everything else that Google is thinking about when it comes to returning those results, it's also keeping in mind Evan and I's specific preferences. For example, if I've been to or shopped at a particular site before, chances are it will rank higher for me in future searches. Also too, some of the searches that it return will be based on my proximity when I search. So stores closer to my home are going to rank higher for me, whereas stores closer to Evan's office are going to rank higher for him. But outside of really just trying to encourage every visitor that comes to your site to interact with it, purely so that you might rank higher in their future individual searches, there really isn't too much you can do here. So that's the 8 factors in a nutshell. One last thing that I'll leave you with is for anyone who has been following SEO and trying to stay up to date with all the changes that Google constantly makes, you may have come across one or more of these terms as well. These are examples of the delightful names that Google comes up with every time it rolls out a new version of its algorithm. And every time they do this, it can often cause a little bit of panic, like, oh my goodness, do I have to relearn a bunch of stuff? Do I have to change what I'm doing, etc.? Well, guess what? Despite what a lot of people might like you to think, those 8 factors that we've talked about today have actually not fundamentally changed in over 5 years. If you tick off those 8 factors, you can really just let the weird algorithm names wash over you. The only thing that does change, however, is which one of the 8 factors will hold the most importance in the latest update. That is to say, which factor should you focus on to see the fastest and best results, or perhaps more accurately, which one will negatively impact your SEO if it just happens to be the one that you are neglecting. Right now, as of 2022, the local SEO factor that currently holds the most importance is Google My Business profile, and by extension, this will mean reviews. So if you don't have one, please go get one. If you have one, please make sure it's filled out in entirety and make sure it's up to date. And if you do not have a process in place to help drive your Google reviews, it might be a great time to have a little think about this as well. That's it for today. I hope it has been helpful. As always, any questions, please send them through. We'd love to hear from you guys. Until then, see you next time.